Hello everyone! With the recent combustion update, setting up a furnace has become a lot easier, so I thought it was time for an update video. In here I have a total of 9 different furnaces that I would really like to show you. Some of them are made by me and some of them are made by other creators, but they are all excellent furnace setups. And you can see they are all essentially running on the same pipe network running overhead here. So it's probably a good idea to just start with explaining what these pipes are before we dive into the actual furnaces. We have the blue pipe, which is just a coolant gas, and a coolant gas for a furnace just means anything less than 500 Kelvin, and it can be absolutely any gas you want. It really doesn't matter as long as it's cold enough. And then we have the yellow gas, the yellow pipe, which is any hot gas, and again it can be absolutely any gas as long as it's hot enough. And an example here is to use pre-combusted fuel. This is really easy now, and I'll quickly show you that at the end of the video. The orange pipe is just the regular old fuel mix, H2 and O2. The khaki pipe is the new fuel mix, the nitrogen oxide fuel, and the gray pipe is just waste gases. And this is just furnace waste gases or gas fuel generated waste gases. So it really doesn't matter as long as it's kind of somewhere in between coolant and hot gas. And all of the furnaces needs 3 of these pipes, not all 5, you only need 3 of them. All the furnaces needs a coolant line, waste gas, and 1 of these 3 in the middle. And I really don't want to focus on how you set it up and how you achieve these pipes, because whenever I do, people tend to take it quite literal and make carbon copies. The best way to achieve this and the best setup for you will heavily depend on what kind of planet you're on and how far along you are, or if you have a gas rocket, for example. It's just one solution fits all just doesn't really exist, so I don't want to focus on it here. To build the furnace, you essentially have 2 options. You can either enclose it in a complete vacuum using walls, or you can just enclose it in a full frame. The full frame has the benefit of giving you some explosion protection, but I prefer the windows just so that we can really see what's happening in the back. The first furnace setup I want to go through is the no-code setup. We made a video on this not too long ago, so if you want to see how to set up all this logic, you can jump over to that video. The reason I have it here is because in that video I had a atmospheric setup in the back that wasn't really intended for people to just copy and use, because it's kind of hacky with the AC, and the AC is about to change. So it's still possible to use with an AC, but it wasn't really intended to be used like that. You should really manage the pressure and the temperature in the pipes with a different system. That's not provided here, but yeah, I just want to show you that it can run on the exact same pipes as the other furnaces. And the next furnace here is the 2-pump setup. This is my new furnace setup, and it's the same code and setup running on this one as well as this one. They are a 2-pump setup because it's 2 input pumps. So you have a hot gas line here with a cold gas line mixing into the back of the furnace. The difference here is that this one doesn't have a hot gas line, it has fuel instead. And you can use any of the 2 fuel mixes instead of the hot gas line. And it's the exact same code running on both of them. So this is a 2-ship setup. And it's the library code and the furnace controller code for a 2-pump setup. And my library code now, by popular demand, also has support for a dial. So you can use a dial here instead of the buttons, or if you like to use the buttons instead for selecting, you have you just set buttons instead of a dial. And the pins here should be really straightforward. It's a PAT, still means pipe analyzer or tank. It just needs to read the info, and VP means volume pump. If you use fuel instead of heat, then you just set the fuel pump and pipe analyzer for fuel here on the heat pins, and then you have coolant and then 2 free pins. So these are 2-ship setup with 2 input pumps, both of them, depending on if you want to have preheated gas or fuel. Over here we have the 3-pump setup. This is very similar to my old furnace setup. It has 3 input pumps in the back, and it can also run on either preheated gas and fuel straight into the furnace. Here I have nitrous oxide fuel, but of course you can use the regular fuel as well. The benefits of a 3-pump setup over a 2-pump setup is that it's slightly more fuel efficient, because it can reuse the waste gases to both pressurize and heat and cool, depending on what you're trying to achieve. So that's the benefit over for a 3-pump over a 2-pump, but what's best for you will heavily depend on what your needs are. The fuel powered furnace, where you have fuel running straight up to the furnace, is a bit slower than the one running on preheated gas. That's true for the 2-pump setup as well. So this setup here, the 3-pump setup with preheated gas, is still my fastest and most efficient fuel furnace setup. And this one also run on a 2-ship setup with a library and a furnace controller, and the furnace controller is pretty much the exact same thing, except now you also have a analyzer for waste and a volume pump for waste. But other than that, it's very similar between the 2-pump and the 3-pump setup. And over on the other side is a few furnaces that is made by other creators that I really like and want to show off. The first one here is Barseal's furnace setup, and this is probably the oldest and most subscribed to furnace setup out of all of the furnace setups I have in here. But the fact that it's old does not mean anything. This has aged like fine wine and is probably performing better now than it has ever done. It's a 2-ship setup running on 2 pumps with fuel straight up to the furnace. What's special here is that it doesn't have any analyzers. It doesn't really need to read the data of the pipes. It works really well without it. They also have automatic ore delivery if you add one more ship to it. And you select your alloy with the dial, and then you hit the button, and then the furnace kicks into gear and starts changing. And it's actually really fuel efficient running on this 2-pump setup. And they have a really great demonstration video for their automatic ore delivery, and I'll link everything down below so that you can get a better look at it. The next furnace is the Pessis furnace. It's a 1-ship setup running on 2 pumps, so it runs on preheated gas and coolant, and everything is packed into a single IC. And you operate it with a dial and select the alloy you want, and the furnace just starts changing the pressure. It's very similar to my own 2-pump setup in how it operates, but this one is in a single IC, so it's a bit more compact. The next one is Chaos R Evils' furnace setup. I probably don't have to tell you who he is, but his furnace setup is also a 1-ship setup running on 2 pumps, preheated gas and coolant. And what's great about his setup is that it has a built-in ore delivery inside the same ship. So here you can just select the alloy you want and hit a button, and ores just start spitting out from a connected vending machine, and it makes your alloys. And last but absolutely not least is Rev 26's furnace. This is the father of the no-code furnace. It's a single IC setup, also with built-in ore delivery. This one is running on 3 pumps, so it's also reusing the waste gases, so it's a really fuel efficient setup. And this one is really made to be used with a vending machine setup, so you just select your alloy and again hit the button, and this guy will automatically eject ores and make your alloys fully automatically. And I'll really quickly go through how I achieve these gases here, but I really want to stress that there are so many different ways to achieve it. So all of these furnaces are super flexible with regards to pressure and temperature, and you can really be creative with it. So don't take this too literally. I have here just a ice mixer and a filtration array. I have two gas mixers that makes my fuel, and to achieve my preheated gas or pre-combusted fuel is just a pressure regulator. Once you have this pipe hot enough that the gases self-combust, then just slowly pumping in more fuel with a pressure regulator will just cleanly burn the fuel in there. Really no point in having any extra logic. So this is what's become really easy now. And I have 2 ICs here that runs the mixers. You can find the code that these guys run in my furnace collection. It's a program to be a fuel mixer and only a fuel mixer. So you have the pipe analyzer for input 1, pipe analyzer for input 2, pipe analyzer for output, and the mixer itself. And this guy will not only detect what gases are in which input, it will also detect what kind of fuel mix you're trying to make, and it will compensate for temperature differences and make a perfect fuel mix. So you can find this code if you need it, but again, you can achieve these with an AC or with the radiators and H2 combustor. There is tons of different ways to do it. And the reason I wanted to set up this world is to show you that there are tons of great furnaces out there, and they all are set up pretty much equally. If I hadn't labeled them, you probably would struggle with identifying which is which. They are more similar than they are different. They are all excellent furnaces, and what's best for you really depends on what your setup is and what you're planning and what world you're on. So I'll link everything down below so that you can have a look through it and find the furnace that fits you the best. And thanks for watching.